Maths is awesome, maths is fun, maths is there for everyone. Hi Year 8s, welcome to our first lesson back, and today we're going to start Chapter 3, Measurement. Now you've probably done a little bit of this before, but we're going to go over it again. You'll see some things that you have seen before, and you'll see some things that you've never seen before. So let's get into it. We're going to be looking at length and perimeter. Now, hopefully you understand what length and perimeter are, but before we talk about that, I just want to talk about a thing called the metric number system or the metric system. We use the metric system in Australia, and the metric system involves things like using meters and centimeters and millimeters and kilometers to measure our lengths. I don't know if any of you have ever traveled to America, but if you go to the United States, they use the imperial system of measurement. So when they measure distances, they use inches and feet and yards and miles. So they use a different system to measure lengths. So I just want you to be aware of that, because sometimes you'll hear people talk in the imperial system. We used to use the imperial system many years ago in Australia, and it was changed to the metric system. And just wanted you to be aware of that. Now, when we're converting using the metric system, we can convert lots of different ways. Now, these are the four basic ones that we need to do. If we want to go from millimeters to centimeters, we take our number in millimeters and we divide it by 10, because there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. If we want to go from centimeters to meters, we take our number and divide by 100, because there's 100 centimeters in a meter. If we have our distance in meters and we want to convert it to kilometers, we take our distance in meters and divide it by 1,000, because there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. If I want to go back the other way, let's say I wanted to convert from kilometers to meters, well then I would times by 1,000. Where it gets tricky is, let's say I wanted to go from kilometers to millimeters, from kilometers all the way down here to millimeters. Well, you'd take your number in kilometers, you'd times it by 1,000, then you'd times it by 100, and then you'd times it by 10. That's one way you can do it. There are quicker ways, but if we just follow this table, that's probably the way that we'll go to start with. Now, what is perimeter? Well, the perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape. So we add up all of the outside lengths of a shape. Sometimes we use the formula perimeter equals SOS, the sum of all the sides, the sum of the sides. So let's get into our first question, where we're going to do a conversion. The question says to convert 10.2 kilometers into meters. So we want to go from kilometers to meters. So we're going from kilometers to meters. That's what we actually want to do. So I can get rid of that, and we'll go, well, 10.2 kilometers into meters is 10.2 times 1,000. Now, how did I know to times it by 1,000? Well, if I'm going from kilometers to meters, there it is there, times by 1,000. So 10.2 times 1,000 is 10,200. When I put that into my calculator, or you could look at that and move the decimal point 3 places to the right, because there are 3 zeros there. That's my answer. For the second one, I want to go from centimeters, 457 centimeters, to meters. Well, where's centimeters? There it is there. Where's meters? There it is there. So I want to go that way. So I'm going to divide by 100. So when I look at this, I'll go 457 divided by 100. 457 divided by 100 is 4.57. So 457 centimeters is the same as 4.57 meters. Let's try another one where we're going to go from kilometers to centimeters. Well, let's have a look at this. Kilometers to centimeters. Here's our kilometers. Here's centimeters. If I want to go from kilometers to centimeters, I'm going to go that way, and then I'm going to go that way again. So the first thing I'll do is times by 1,000, and then I'll times by 100. So when I write this out, I can go, it becomes 2.3 times 1,000 times 100, and that converts it into centimeters. So put that into your calculator, and you'll get 230,000. Let's try our next one. Let's convert 157,000 millimetres into kilometres. Well, where's millimetres to kilometres? Here's millimetres. Here's kilometres, the furthest away. So I'm going to go once, twice, 3 times. 3 jumps to get from the beginning oval to the last oval. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide by 10. Then I'm going to divide by 100. Then I'm going to divide by 1,000. So if I do that, it's 157 divided by 10, divided by 100, divided by 1,000. Put that into the calculator and I get 0.157 kilometres. Righto, question 2 says to calculate the perimeter. What does perimeter mean? Perimeter means the distance around all of the outside edges added together. Well, this is a triangle, so there are 3 outside edges. I have to plus those 3 sides together to get my answer. So if I plus those 3 sides together, there is my working out. Put that into the calculator, there is my answer. So when I do 4.6 plus 5 plus 9.8, the answer is 19.4, so it's 19.4 centimetres all of the way around my shape. Now for my next shape, the perimeter is add up the distance around the side of my shape. Well, if I add up the distance, I'm going to look at it and you'll notice I've got a 9 and a 3 and a 3, a 3.5 and a 4, a 6 and a 6. That length there, I do not know. I have to find out what that length is there first before I can do anything else. So what I'm going to notice is all of the way across is 9. And then when I look at it, I can see that this part here is 3.5. This part here is 4. What I need to know is how far is that part there. Well, when I look at the 3.5 and the 4, if I plus those two together, 3.5 plus 4 is 7.5. So I know the distance for those 2 blue lines is 7.5, and I know the distance all of the way across is 9. And if I go 9 take 7.5, I will get 1.5. And what does that actually mean? Well, that means 1.5 is the length of that side there. And I can actually now put that into my question. I don't need to write that line there. I can start with this line here, with a p equals in front, of course. Add up all of those numbers, and they add up to 36, so the perimeter is 36 metres. Now, there are some little shortcut methods you could use for this one here, but we'll talk about those once you get confident with adding up all of the distances and figuring out missing side lengths, because that's an important skill to be able to learn how to find the missing side lengths. Now, with part C, you'll notice I've got 2 question marks in the question because I know this side length, this side length, this side length, this side length. There are 2 side lengths I don't know. So I've got to figure out what those side lengths are. Now, I could write the question like this. I wouldn't normally do that, but I could say there's a 9 plus the 10 plus the 2 plus the 6, and I've got the 2 sides I don't know. I have to figure them out. So if I figured out the red side, I could look at it and I could go, I know the distance all of the way from the top to the bottom is 9. It says it there. I know that the distance from there to there is 2. How do I know that? It says it here. Which means 9 take away 2 is 7. My question mark is 7 centimetres long. And if I go to my green question mark, I know that this distance all the way along the bottom here is 10. I know that this distance is 6. 10 take away 6 is 4. So that distance there is 4. So I can actually go and put my distances in to my perimeters formula, which is just add up all of the sides. I had to figure out what 2 of the sides were, put that into my calculator, and I get 38, so the perimeter is 38 centimetres. Let's go to our next part. Now this one looks tricky, but it's actually one of the easiest ones we've done because I've got to find the distance around the shape and I know the 3 lengths. They might have letters in them, but that's okay. The perimeter will be the 2b and the 2b and the 5b. It doesn't matter what order I add the numbers together. I could have 5b plus 2b plus 2b, 2b plus 5b plus 2b. It doesn't matter. Now let's say B stood for a banana. 2 bananas plus another 2 bananas plus another 5 bananas means I've got 2 plus 2 plus 5 is 9. I've got 9 bananas, so the answer is 9b. There is my answer. That's finished. Okay, now with question number 3, or example 3, it's a little bit different to any question we've seen before because it says I've got to find the value of x, and x is a side length, and I'm told the distance around the shape, the perimeter, is 22 millimetres. That means that that side plus that side plus that side adds up to 22. Now because this is a triangle that has some double dashes on 2 of the sides, those double dashes mean that the 2 sides with the double dashes are the same length. So this side here is also x millimetres. And if that's x millimetres, that means I now know that this side is 6, this side is x, this side is x, 6 plus x is the perimeter. So I now no longer have to, I don't have to put a question mark there. I don't even need to write that line. I can just go straight to 6 plus x plus x. But I know something else. I know that the perimeter, I know that 6 plus x has to add up to be 22. So the perimeter is 22, and I have 6 plus x. Now x plus x, I know that. 1x plus 1x is 2x. Now I can look at this equation. The whole idea is to figure out what x is, so I'm going to minus 6 to both sides. I'll get rid of that 6 by minusing 6 to both sides. 22 takes 6 gives 16. 6 takes 6 drops out to give 0, so I end up with 16 equals 2x. Remember, to get x by itself, x is being times by 2. The opposite of timesing by 2 is dividing by 2, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And then my 2's will cancel there, and I'll get 16 divided by 2 is 8. I get 8 equals x, or I could better write that as x equals 8. So I now know that the value of x is 8. That would be 8, that would be 8, and that would be 6, so that my triangle adds up, or has a perimeter of 22 millimetres. The 3 sides add to give 22 millimetres. Now, question number 4. A rectangular paddock 90 metres by 38 metres needs to be fenced with 4 rows of wire. A lot of people don't understand what that means, so I've put a picture I just grabbed off the internet here. This is a fence that has 4 strands of wire. And you'll see these in a lot of rural properties. So we have to do a fence around our property with 4 rows of wire. So let's not worry about the 4 rows. Let's just find the distance around the shape so we can figure out how much wire we need for 1 row, and then we times it by 4 at the end. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a rectangle. Now the paddock is a rectangular paddock, so it's 90 metres. There's the 2 90s and there's the 2 38s. It's 90 metres by 38 metres. Let's find the perimeter, or the distance around the outside of the paddock. So the perimeter is 90 plus 90 plus 38 plus 38. Doesn't matter about the order that I do them in. I could have written 2 times 90 plus 2 times 38. That's fine. When I add all of those up, I get 256 metres to go around the paddock. So I need 256 metres of wire to do 1 strand around my paddock. How many strands of wire do there need to be in the fence? 4. There's 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the paddock has a perimeter of 256 metres. So the total wire required for 4 rows of wire will be 4 lots of 256, which is 1,024 metres of wire. And if I did convert that to kilometres, it's just over 1 kilometre of wire. So there's a lot of wire required to make the fence for this paddock. Now, the hardest example that we're going to look at for this exercise, Gillian can jog 100 metres in 24 seconds. How long will it take her to jog 2 kilometres? Assume Gillian can keep jogging at the same rate, and we need to give our answer in minutes. Well, first of all, because she can run 100 metres in 24 seconds, I'm going to figure out how many metres there are in the 2 kilometres. Again, there are several ways you could do this. I'm only going to be doing one method for this. So I'm going to convert the 2 kilometres to metres because that's how far she jogs. Now, if we remember our conversion rules, to go from kilometres to metres, I have to go that way. So I'm going to times by 1,000. 2 times 1,000 is 2,000. Now, if you knew that 2 kilometres was 2,000 metres, you don't have to write this step here. You can just go 2 kilometres equals 2,000 metres, and that's it. That's fine. You don't have to look at the table if you know that. It's 1,000 metres make up a kilometre. That means how many lots of 100 metres, because we know that every time she jogs 100 metres, it takes her 24 seconds. How many lots of 100 metres are now in the 2,000 metres? Well, I can do that by just doing 2,000 divided by 100. So 2,000 divided by 100 is 20. So there are 20 lots of 100 metres to make up our 2,000 metres. So how long does it take for her to run her 20 lots of 100 metres? It'll be 20 times 24 seconds, which is 480 seconds. Now the question did say to give the answer in minutes. Now we haven't talked about this, but you would be well aware that 1 minute equals 60 seconds. So if I want to go from seconds to minutes, I'm going to have to divide by 60 because there are 60 seconds in a minute. 480 divided by 60, I do that on the calculator, and that means it takes her 8 minutes to jog her 2 kilometres. Right, time for you to try some questions. Enjoy the experience. Bye for now.